All right, so we're going to build out a little AJAX example and focus on some HTML and CSS. That's what the lay of the land is here. And we talked about how your templates in Go can be named any file extension, Go HTML, GMAO, PHP, ASP, JSP, whatever you want. That will really confuse people. They look at your code and you have a bunch of PHP files and you have no PHP. Maybe that's what you want. I'm going to call mine just HTML. Okay? Because if I use just HTML as my extension, then my editor will give me all of the HTML functionality. So there's index.html. I'm going to need a CSS. So index is the normal one we use for your primary HTML page, and main is the normal one you use for your main style sheet. And so now I have index and I have main. I need to link my CSS to my HTML. So that's how you link it.
So that thing there where you just type in link and it expanded, that's a plugin called Emmet. It's available for just about every just about every editor out there that supports HTML. Emmet, E-M-M-E-T. Mostly useful for HTML if you can just type the name of a particular HTML element, press tab, and it will expand it.
What was that called again?
Emmet.
Sometimes it works. If you're using Atom, then if you use a different extension, you probably want to add that extension to the config file so that
Atom,
you can actually see it.
You have to call it .html. It only recognizes the .html by default.
That is not HTML. Something like that.
So you could do really cool things with Emmet, like ULLI times 10. Sweet. Or you could say ULLI and I want, item $. Sweet. Or ULLI
with an ID for each one.
I think it's brackets. Woo! Yee-hee! Fast typer. And so all those are on Emmet cheat sheet. So it's just, you could even do, like if I had nothing here. Whoops. I think it's
Exclamation.
There we go.
Skip the HTML part to say.
Oh, it's just exclamation. There we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just do a little bit of a reset. So this is CSS. CSS are rule sets, and I'm just reiterating stuff that I've mentioned maybe once or something in the class. CSS have rule sets. A rule set is made up of a selector and then declaration block. It's a block because it's between braces, and declaration block is made of declarations. Declarations have properties and values. Okay, so my selectors can be just tags, elements from the HTML page. So I've said select HTML and body, right? Or they could be like IDs. So if I have a div with an ID, right, I could select that here with top. And then I would select that and I could start applying CSS to it. And if I had a class, an ID can only be applied once, but a class can be applied 10 times. Or an unlimited amount of times.
Do you need the comma in CSS? So look at that.
Comma?
You got comma in your CSS between the elements.
I think so.
That means that
Yeah, like
When you're going-
it's applying to HTML and body.
Yeah.
Sub-value of HTML.
Yeah. And so I target the happy class like this. And so just to show you some of that in action, first thing I'm going to do here is everything, we learned this a little bit already, everything on the internet is a box. That's called the box model. And the box is content, and then it has padding, and then it has a border, and then it has margin. Content, padding, border, margin. So I'm going to do padding and set it to 0, And I'm going to do, and let me show you what this does, okay? I'm just trying to figure out how to do it. First, I'll show you color is the text color. And blue. This is cool. Okay, blue and red. So the CSS, blue got applied to everything with the happy class. The CSS, and let me put this over here. Top got, red. And these aren't doing anything. I am going to do the selector for everything and do border, 4 pixels, solid hot pink. And I'll just put a border around everything. So it shows me all my different boxes. And if I wanted to, I could say, hey, around padding, around top, I want to add padding of 30 pixels. Because there's the content, and then there's padding, and then there's a border. I could also say around that one I want to add a margin of 100 pixels. Content, padding, border, margin. And now you can see this outer one. What is that outer one? I could do this if I wanted. Okay, that's where my HTML is holding stuff. And I could see my body. You know what's funny? They have all these interesting names. Rebecca Purple. Like what? Who's Rebecca? Purple's a little bit hard to see. I think it's better before green.
Well, would you rather have Rebecca Purple or //
Right. Yeah.
some number for the color?
Now, admittedly, I use color scheme designers because I'm horrible at all of that stuff, so I just use RGBs because I copy it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's some space between the HTML and the body, the black and the green. So I could do a reset. I could just say padding is 0, border is 0, and margin is 0. I might be getting rid of border there in a second. Border got rid of. So now it took out that space because I set their padding and their margin to 0.
Something that I've run into recently that it's easy to forget about, the order in which you put those properties on there
matters.
Still matter.
And there's CSS specificity. So I'm just going to take all this out. We'll leave on that, and I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to take these out. And I'm going to show you the secret to a beautiful above-the-fold design. So I'm going to want, in my body, just some container. When you have a container which is just for containing something and nothing else, then you just use a div. But you also, for best practices, when you need to put stuff in an area, there's semantic tags like header, footer, main, article, section, and you use those for the appropriate content. But right now, I'm just doing a div because this is everything I want above the fold. So I'm going to give this an ID. There's only going to be one, and that ID will be above the fold. And over here, I'm going to add ATF. Thinking maybe of calling it WTF, but decided against it. And I'm setting the padding, border, margin because your browser by default will add some of that in. So I'm manually setting them to 0. And now for both the HTML, oh, I can just do it right here. For all those, I'm now going to say height is equal to, because before I put in, sorry, not equal to, there's nothing there, right? Now I'll do height, colon, 100%. Nothing. Let's see, that's why. Got a little bit of scroll.
Box level.
Thank you.
Border box.
Thank you. So we have a little bit of scroll here because the border is adding on 4 pixels.
8 actually.
So top and bottom is 8.
Yeah, 4 at the top and 4 at the
Yeah, 4 on top, 4 on bottom. And to stop that, we could do box sizing, border box. And now we have perfect 100% height, no matter what size the browser window. So anything we put in here is now always above the fold. Anything we put below, you could do lorem times something to get some placeholder text. I should probably put that in a paragraph. So now no matter what size my browser, it's always above the fold, and that's always below the fold.
Is that a WebStorm function?
That's part of Emmet.
That's Emmett.
And there's plenty of websites that'll give you lorem ipsum if you need it in a pinch.
And lorem is just kind of random text, so you can see what it would look like with generic ebook here, what it's actually saying. You just want to see what it looks like with text there.
I think we should create a video where we speak lorem. Hello, welcome to DevOps Central, the originators of the lorem ipsum text. We've come here to find out a little bit about this language and where it originated. Hi, how are you guys? Is ipsum something? Bloop, bloop, blah, bloop, 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 bloop. We'd have to practice speaking it.
So basically, box sizing border box there is normally width and length are based off of the padding and the contents only, and border and margin add on top of that, outside of it. So box sizing border box specifies that include the border when you say how high is the height of the section. So it says height of 100%. With the box sizing being border box, that means the border, the padding, and the content are all inside the specified height.
I just whipped that out while you're talking. So without box sizing border box, if we have 2 divs, and then I say, hey, make this border really big, my div grew out in size. Well, that kind of sucks if I'm working in some sort of let me get things laid out really nice, and this thing grew because I added border and it just pushed something off the page to the next row, right? Well, I don't want my stuff to grow when I add border or padding. And so if you say box sizing border box, what that says is like, okay, as I add padding or border, it's no longer going to change the width that I've set for this element. So it kind of grows, it pushes the content inward instead of expanding the container outward. So that's just box sizing border box. So that's perfect above the fold. And now inside here, I could start creating stuff. And so for that one thing, I had some text, which said do something. Inner word, what was it? Inner words, and then some sort of form box and a button. Okay? So that's what we're looking to build. So I'm thinking H1, inner words, and then I'm going to need some sort of form field and a submit button. So I could go to MDN form. How do I do a form? MDN is always your go-to source for HTML and CSS. And over here, there's usually, when you have greater screen resolution, a link to examples. but here's an example. I just copy that. So we have form, action. The action will always submit to the exact same page from which it came, same location. So I don't really need that. I will specify method post. And I'm going to have my own label. I have an ID, which will be if I wanted to target it with CSS, I could target that ID or target it with JavaScript. But I'm not sure I'm going to need that. But I will need to name have a variable of some name for whatever is input there. So I'm going to put word, new word. So that will be the name of the variable that when this form gets submitted, it comes to the server. I could say, hey, give me new word, and it'll give me the value that was entered there. And then I have a submit button, and the value on the submit button is save. If I look at that, it says save. Right? I think I'd rather have that say submit. And then down below that, I have there we go. Another thing I need to add in, which will be inner word submit, and then the text down here that shows up, word taken. So that could be H1 too. Cool. But now that's kind of not the way I want it to look. I want it to be all vertical, inner words, box, button, this. So I need to have some way to arrange that. The best tool that I know of and that I love, why did I have a yellow there? Input associated with that label, that's all right, is Flexbox. So Flexbox, you got to think container and items. My container here is ATF. And then here are my items. Those are already vertically aligned, right? Including this one, but those aren't. So what I need to do is also get those in the center. So Flexbox is good for that too. So let's center that. So I'll do pound ATF, select that element right here, and I'm going to say display flex and flex direction row. I'm going to keep this one row. We'll see, I might change that. But that's flex direction default is row, and the default is flex wrap, no wrap. So those are just the defaults. And then justify content. The way Flexbox works is you have a container, and then you set a direction. This is the Flex container, and then these are the direct immediate children of the Flex container. And so those are all now Flex items. These would not be a Flex item of this container because it's not a direct immediate child. It's only this, this, and this that are the direct immediate children of the container. And so I could say put all these guys, these three in a row, which would be Flex direction row. Or I could say put them all in a column, which would be Flex direction column. You're right, I do want column. Thank you. So if I did row, let's just show that. Those are all now in a row. And if I do column, cool, they're now all in a column. And because I had justify content center, it centered it across the size of that container. Right? And so the way it works is you specify your container, you specify the direction, and then your direction has a primary axis. So if my direction is column, what is my primary axis? Vertical or horizontal? Primary axis is vertical. If my direction is row, my primary axis is horizontal. Okay? So right now, column, primary axes is vertical. Justify content works on the primary axes. So it's going to justify it center vertically. Align items works on the cross axes. So if it's a column, primary axis is vertical. Justify content works on the primary axes. Align items works on the cross axes, which in this case is horizontal. So I say center this. It's going to bring it over center. Yeah! Sweet! It's beautiful. And it's always there.
It's very easy.
It's super easy once you understand it. Now, if this had been row, I'd have to flip primary cross axes, and primary would still be working on primary, and this would be working on the cross axes, right? But I just have to kind of shift, which is primary, which is cross, and remember this works on primary, this works on cross axes. So now to do this one, you guys call it out to me. So my form, I want these guys to be vertical. And I'm going to use Flexbox to do that, meaning I have this field here, and then I have this one beneath it. So how do I take these two items using Flexbox and make those two vertical? What's the first thing I need to do? I need to select what?
You
What?
need to select ATF and then the form.
Sure, I could do it like that. I could say, hey,
Oh, you're right.
inside ATF, select the form.
Good idea too.
In case we had other forms in there. Or since I only have one form, I could just say form. But if I threw other forms in, then I'm selecting all those too. We'll go with your suggestion.
I think ID lookups are fast for the browser too.
Are they?
Simply one. So if they find them fast.
Yeah, as soon as it finds it, it stops searching.
Yeah.
Because it reads it from right to left. So it says, for every form, let me look and see if I'm a child of something that has an ID ATF.
And don't forget, class selections are also really useful if you want to make broad changes to several different objects of similar kinds.
Yeah, if you want to use the class, but this is good enough.
All right. Let's rock the Casbah. Now what? I've selected this stuff right here, the form. Now what?
Would you do display flex?
Display flex.
Flex.
Flex. Yes, I said it wrong. And then what?
Find the width.
You can see it up here. What's my flex direction? I want these to be column, or along column or row?
Rows.
Column, absolutely. Cool. And you can see now why having pink boxes around your elements is like, okay, that's helpful. Because that's not quite, I'd like those guys to be a little bit bigger. So flex direction column. Do I need to do anything else to it?
Well, do we need to change the size and styles of the items?
Yeah, we're going to change that. But with this this here, with the flex stuff, do I need to set any of the justify content or line items? I might need to come back to that, but right now it's okay. Okay. So next thing I want to do is maybe style the background. So my background is my body. And I like to just kind of keep things in the order in which they hit on the HTML page. And so before I hit my ATF, I have my body. So I'm just going to do a body here. Background.
Is it Rebecca?
Cool. That's getting hard to look at. And then we hit the ATF, and then we hit the H1. So might as well just keep them in order. And color is your font color, and I could just do RGBA, and it's 0000 would be black, give me nothing, RGB, no red, no green, no blue, or I could do 255, 255, 255, and for some strange reason, when you combine all of the colors, they turn to white. There's some hippiness in there somewhere. And the last one here is alpha for transparency. Right now I have it totally solid. I'm going to change it to like 0.4, 0.7. So it kind of blends with my underlying color. That's not looking good up there. It looks good on my laptop.
I'll take your word for
The
it.
VGA cable is horrible. If you stand underneath the projector, I've got an HDMI cable that can stretch to it.
That's all right. And then I want to change the size of my H1s. So font size, and I'm going to do 20 viewport width. So there's this website, I mentioned this stuff before, VW is only supported in 78% of browsers. So in production I would not be using this because I like to go for 95%, right? But eventually this will be coming online, and it's good to know about because it's totally so useful. Too big? The nice thing about viewport width is as the width changes, so does the size of the words. Now you can see I'm getting some squish there. Looks like there's some margin around each one. It's squishing that some, right? So I'm going to come over here and on my reset, add in my H1. So it sets the margin to 0. But I don't want the height to be 100%. So I need to sort of break this one up. You can leave box sizing. And then down here, I think this one could be up here. It's more like a global thing. So now I've set my margin to 0, my padding to 0 on my H1. Brought them in. So it all so much comes back to that box model thing, knowing you got your content with padding, border, margin, right? And then Flexbox, display flex, children, what direction, primary axes, cross axes. That gets you so far in box sizing, border box, so your padding and your border don't push your size container out. Now I just need to do the middle part with the form. So we have submit and we have a new word. I think I'll give these IDs. There's a cool thing about WebStorm too, by the way. When you have a color, you can click right here. I like that color. And you can say, you know, I need that to be lighter. That's looking worse. I should just make this green. That's better for you guys.
You just need an HDMI cable. Plug it out. VGA's messing up all those.
So I'll give this an ID, and I'll call it
Enter bar.
enter area, whatever. And I'll give this one an ID. And now enter area. font size 10 VWs. Cool. And now my submit button is and I could do border radius 20 pixels, which rounds the corners. Watch this. See those corners round? And I could do background color. Or, I don't know, what's a good one? Hot pink. I could get, well, I'll leave my borders on for a second still. And then I want to add a little margin top to it. I think I'll just add margin top and bottom and all around, so it moves it off of that part too. And then I can take this off. And I could then also do this one down here, word taken, ID result, or feedback. But it kind of is weird because it shifts, right?
You want visibility of that instead? Or the visibility
Does that do it?
visibility 0.
Invisible. Or hidden. Sorry.
Visibility hidden.
Does that mean? Oh! I love it! That's where pair programming's awesome. It's like, oh man, cool. How'd you pull that out of your hat? I totally forgot about that one.
Yeah, because display affects the box model where it's located, which is why you flex. It's affecting how it's laying out the page. So if you display none, it acts as if that element isn't even there for purposes of positioning everything.
Takes it off.
We want it to still be there for purposes of positioning. We just don't want to see it. So visibility tag is for that.
I gotta update my other code. I'll do that later. Because I didn't have that display node and it's jumping up and down. Cool, man. So then to wire up the AJAX stuff, we have to start connecting Go to it. That's pretty much all we need right here.
Yeah, stick a team members on there, and that's your front end, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good start. Well, no, because this doesn't have, oh, it's above the fold and yeah.
Above full Flexbox.
Flexbox, yeah, whatever those criteria.
Members, and I don't remember what your fourth one.
Yeah, media queries.
Media queries.
Yeah, never mind. I think you guys got it all.
So yeah, media queries. If you want to do that, then nothing to do with that yet.
How is this above the fold? Can you explain that part?
So above the fold is from publishing when they used to just do newspapers. They talk about what's showing above the fold of the newspaper on a newspaper rack, right? So like think New York, people walking to the subway, and here are these stacks of newspapers at the newsstand, and you'd see what's on the front page, but only what's above the fold because that's how it's stacked. And so in publishing, they talk about you want to have this content above the fold, right? So that's what people see when they just glance at the newspaper. And so that's above the fold in web programming is the first thing people see when they hit your home page, right? That's above the fold. And if you look at a lot of websites and you look at them on different resolutions, they don't have above the fold figured out. You know, so I don't know.
Go to my website.
It's
REI.
the same thing with books too. Like, you're never gonna see the title in the middle exactly. You're gonna see it like at UI level.
Yeah, so here that was kind of weird. Ghost bicycle technology, and then we had some shift, and then actually see what's new from Ghost. And if I had this at different, all right, that's all right, that's okay, you know. But it's not always the same, you know.
That is weird.
And so, depending upon the size of if I'm looking through this size monitor or a mobile phone or whatever, you know, can I control what is being shown above the fold? And so to do that is just what I showed you with that ATF deal and 100%, right? That's all 100%. That's all the viewport 100% when you bring it on. Does that explain it?
Yeah.
Cool.
If you want an example, you can use my website.
Okay, let's take a look.
The page does this. Resize it, tell it to be a phone. Stuff will always look like this.
Yeah.
Only in
Oh, you have to hit refresh.
yeah, only in
There
a
you go.
browser does it. It actually does a media detection of.
Oh, it does
phones.
media detection.
Yeah. So in a
Alright.
browser, when it detects that it can't quite fit it, it'll turn it into that other layout, just that column. But for everything else, it's got this.
Cool, man.
It's an awesome template.
Uh,
I'm very happy I did.
So I don't have the flashing cursor. So I need to select my enter area. And
No.
it needs to be, no, not in CSS, but over here, I need to do auto focus. So now you can see my cursor's flashing. And maybe if I want that in the middle, I can now select my CSS, split vertically, and enter area, text align center. Cool. Yeah! So awesome. You want to wire it up? Or you guys had enough and you just want to like go do your own thing and lab time and work with your team, aka get a coffee and go to your next class. What do you want?
Keep going.
Wired up, AJAX?
There's no JavaScript yet. It's all working pure CSS, HTML. No JavaScript.
So if I'm going to integrate Go, I need to start thinking about serving stuff. And I don't know how I did it last time, but this is how I'm doing it this time. Which means that if that's in public, main CSS will be in public, that'll be fine. And then I need a new file there, which will be JavaScript. Also, naming convention, just call it main.js. Okay, and then on my index down here, I need to ask for script.
You need to start your tab. Oh, your
Is it colon? Ah, sweet. I love pair programming. It's awesome.
That's ridiculous.
And you might be saying, hey, that's disconnected. That's not working. You're right. Public main.js. Huh?
So the reason you put the script down at the bottom is because when your browser loads the web page, it loads it top to bottom. So by putting the script tag at the bottom, you can make sure that the rest of your page is loaded before your script starts doing query selector.
All right. And now I need a main.go. Lots of main files here. And I could just do this. This is just going to be entry checker. Funkin' it. And I want to first serve my files, make them work. So I have some templates to parse. I just want to serve that page.
Yeah, you gotta pass the HTML out.
I've been doing JavaScript, throw me off. I like wanting to put semicolons and stuff.
Yeah, that's the wrong import.
Yeah. That's totally annoying.
The low res screen covering everything.
Okay, so now I have my template parsed. And I need my routes. What did I do for my routes? But what does index need? It needs some arguments, right? Some parameters. What are those?
Speed out response better. Request.
Cool. Oh, thank you. I do that. Because it takes a writer, a name, and data. So now we should be able to go app serve this, and it'll serve that file without any CSS.
So what's the serve?
Oh, app YAML.
Yeah. Oh, you do it.
Cool. Now we have to get our CSS serving, so we need some file serving.
I saw the favicon pop up too.
Get rid of favicon. Is that right?
Favicon
No,
dot
I
ICO.
know. It's
Not
good.
dot favicon.
Yeah. Isn't there something I could do like that?
No, yeah, not found.
Look up fan handler. That way.
I'll do it?
Yeah.
I don't have to pass it anything? It's just a handler.
Not fan handler returns a
Handler, which is what that wants. Alright, and then I also need to serve my files. So that's all like strip prefix. Remember that?
The really big one.
So here's the easiest way to do this.
If only that wasn't the honest truth. I made one of these solutions, and I just copy and paste it in every time I want to start a new one.
Let's see if this makes sense. So handle anything that comes in at public plus anything forward of that. And we're going to strip off public, which will leave a /, right? And then we're going to do a file server at public /. I think that's right. Let's see what happens. We might be altering that. Woo! Cool, man. Okay, so now we need to do some JavaScript so that when somebody enters something, that starts sending over AJAX requests. We can process them on the server. So open up main.js. And first thing I know we're going to need to do is we got to, grab this inner area right here. So var l is equal to document.querySelector. I'm sorry. It's much easier to use a single quote, which you could do in JavaScript, but you can't do a single quote in Go. So I'm using double quotes because you could do that in both. You can use backticks in Go. And I need to select enter area. So pound enter area. And now I could just console log that, see if I got it.
Note the query selector thing is just CSS selector. You can put as complicated a CSS selector you want in there as you want. And you can get some really complicated CSS selectors too.
And you'll see a lot of code with JS that says get element by ID. And that's like the old crappy way to do it. Don't let anybody tell you different.
We did some tests at boot camp and found that it's about the same speed as query selector, so there's no point in using specific functions for ID when you can just use query selector and get it anyway.
Yeah, and by we, he means he.
The guy in front did it at the time.
Oh, that wasn't you.
Yeah, that was Ray.
Was it Ray?
Yeah.
Cool. So now let's look at that. Bring up the console. Stop. Refresh. And we got that. So we got access to that ID. Now here's a what with JavaScript. We saw what console log does. It gives us this. Now I'm going to do dir to give me the entire directory of all the crap associated with it. And when I do that, console log decides to do what console dir does. What? Look, console log by itself. I'm going to show you this. Put a friend console dir next to it. Console log decides to do what console dir does.
That's weird.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So we've got that. So we got our element, and now we need to do some sort of a listener to listen for input, right? So l.add event listener, and several definitions. That's no help. But basically, it's going to take the event and a callback, some function we want it to run. Okay, so we could do a function. And the event is going to be input, is that right?
Yep.
And the function, we could just console log
Take in the
E?
Yeah, take in the E argument. So event callbacks can have an optional parameter, traditionally called E, which is the event that just happened.
How many of you are surprised at my JavaScript coding prowess? Nobody?
I'm just surprised that you can nest the
Yeah,
function definition inside.
You can do that in Go too. Although Go doesn't usually design after it.
Yeah.
JavaScript designs their function specifically for this to be useful.
JavaScript is also known as callback hell. I don't know if I mentioned that the other day.
Yeah, imagine when you nest that, and then you nest another callback inside a function inside there, and another one inside that. It ends up getting really confusing.
So now let's run it and see what happens. I think we're just still reloading. And, oh, I need to enter something. Cool. All right, so it's logging out E, the event. So we could click this open and we could look in it, like what does that event have? And it's got bubbles. Nice. It's got cancel bubble, current target, default prevented, trusted, path, return value, target, timestamp, type is input, proto.
All JavaScript objects got proto. It's basically a jury rig JavaScript object acting like a class from other things. But the important one is target.
So we can look at target. What's target have?
Everything.
All kinds of stuff, including style and value. All those A's. So L E.target.value. And I could get rid of that one. Cool!
So you may see on the web when you're looking stuff up, people will do stuff like this using key down event instead of input. The main difference to use key input instead of key down is key down will also trigger on invisible keys like shift and control, whereas the input event only fires when the contents of the input HTML changes.
Awesome. I love that you have that detailed knowledge. All right, so now we need to send that to the server and then catch it. Bar XHR is equal to new XML HTTP request. I'm not getting code help here.
Yeah, new space.
New space,
XML.
XML, HTTP request. Object, optional. I'm just going to do that. And then there's going to be XHR open.
XML stands for XML HTTP request, by the way, if you didn't figure that out.
And string
XHR stands for XML HTTP.
is method and string URL. So I'm going to do method will be post, and URL will be API check, and then XHR send. Several definitions. Wonderful. That's no help. And I want to send over that. And I might add a little just so I could see in the console that we're sending that value. And then I need to listen. So I'll put some comments in here. What was the line of code for receiving an AJAX response?
Event listen? Or
I truly don't know.
It is the event listener. They start to add event listener. The type was what was it? Status change. Was
Oh, and is that then we have the 200 and status 4. So let me show you the quickest way to do this.
Ready state change. That's it.
Ready state change function. Out of event listener ready state change function.
See, we're now nesting another callback instead of first callback. Still need a semicolon right where your first.
Do I? I was wondering about that. I'm like, is that a statement?
Yeah, that's the end of the add event listener statement there.
All right.
So you're going to take an E here, so you can get access to this ready state. Or no.
No, I didn't do that.
You can just ask us XHR. Well, E.target thought it would be XHR too. So
There you go.
Add event listener, if ready state's equal to 4, because when you read about XML AJAX things, right, it has like 3, 4 states. So you say if it's 4 and if it's okay, status is okay, then we're going to get the response text. And at this point, I guess we could just log it.
ready state 4 means the request is sent, it got received by the server, and the server sent back the response. It's like basically the entire AJAX request is ready state 4.
Okay, makes sense? That's not too bad right there. Ready state change function, ready state equals 4, and XHR status equals 200. So now we need to catch that, and we need to catch it at API check. See, don't you want to put don't you want to put in semicolons now? So I want to call it something different so there's no confusion.
Checker, not AJAX.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if we need to do that, but I don't think we do. Let's keep it easy. All right, so
I think there's an error status code for wrong method, but if you wanted to check that. Request.body.
oh right.
Read the requests to that body.
Request.body,
IO util read all.
IO util read all, and I have to wrap. Yes, thank you.
IO util is a package.
I know. Read all takes a reader, returns a slice of byte and an error. I guess we'll do that. I think that's all it
Status
needs.
code. The status
Does it need that too? $500.
code and return so you can keep working.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the line I miss the most is actually that return in my error statements.
All right, so we got that, and then we could just log info f. Which log did I spring in? Not the right one. Oh, it did. Because it's info f.
Standard one doesn't have info F. It's got print, fatal, and panic.
I'm gonna need context and format string and args. And I need a context. And then I can reply to the server. Which one?
I have no right string or format any of the
Yeah.
stuff.
Right string takes that and a string. Cool. So we get a context, we read the request body, give it to the byte slice, and then we're going to log that, hey, we received this, and we're going to send back that we received that. So we'll enter something, it'll log to our JavaScript console, it'll send it to our server, which will log to our server, and then our server will send it back, and when we receive it, it'll be logged here, right? Received from server, it came back. So let's check it out, see if it works. I'm sure I did something wrong. But you know what? We got a lot of good pair programming going on. A lot of eyes, so maybe it'll run. Let's look at our console down here. Sending F, received from server, we received F. Whoa.
The console for the server should have that too. If you tab over to the console.
That's effing awesome. Sorry, that's all that came up. Received effing awesome, effing awesome. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't that exciting? I think it's totally exciting. So now all you have to do is start putting in data store, and the deals that you get right in here, right? Check it against the data store. Did something come back? Oh, that's already taken. Send back a true, right? Or send back a false. It's not, and then display something based upon that true or false.
Although that said, if you're storing things in data store based off of what the user types, you should wait for a larger command like a submit button or an enter. You really don't want to be hitting the data store every time someone types something.
But just to check it, to see if that exists in there.
Yeah, you don't want to write to the data store every
Yeah.
time you're checking. You probably don't want to read from the data store every time either, which is what memcache is for, but sometimes you have to anyway. So.
And I put, because the data store is eventually consistent, I put in well, did I put that in here? Maybe I only put in the other one.
A wait timer of a second.
I did. I put in a little bit of a wait.
I did the same. It's such a lazy solution, but
Would it be the JavaScript or would it be the Go side of things?
Yeah, maybe I put it on the Go side. I thought it was over here. I don't know. You might see that. Maybe I didn't put it in. Maybe I streamed it. Okay, that was fun. Anybody have any thoughts or questions?
Small request, though, can you go back